Hello, boxing fans! Welcome freaking back! Well, today, we're talking about Manny Pacquiao, but not in usual way, ha ha ha. The real question is this: can Prime Manny Pacquiao survive the Four Kings era? The time of Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, Roberto Duran, and Marvin Hagler, where every fight was a war. And before we start, if you're not subscribed yet, help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers this year. Your support allows us to keep making stronger, better boxing content. Now let's get into it. So before we actually talk about the Four Kings era, we need to do this again. We need to talk about Manny Pacquiao. And I know we've already talked about him a lot on this channel. Everybody knows who he is, but stay with me for a second. Manny Pacquiao is the only boxer in history to win world titles in 8 different divisions, starting from flyweight all the way to super welterweight. And let's not forget who he fought for that 8th division: Antonio Margarito. At that point, Margarito was basically the size of a middleweight already. Taller, heavier, naturally bigger. And Manny didn't just survive that fight, he dominated it. Before even becoming an 8-division world champion, Manny already skipped multiple weight classes. No long adjustments, no safe build-up, just straight jumps. Along the way, he became a 5-time lineal champion, one fighter of the decade, and collected multiple Fighter of the Year awards. And yes, Knockout of the Year too. 2009, Ricky Hatton. Everyone remembers that. He was knocking out and beating elite fighters who were bigger, stronger, and ranked pound for pound in much heavier divisions. That's why many people consider Manny one of the greatest boxers of all time. And for his era, it's very fair to say he was the greatest. But here's where it gets complicated. Because in that same era, there was Floyd Mayweather. And saying Manny is clearly better than Floyd, or Floyd is clearly better than Manny, is honestly hard. Floyd beat Manny by unanimous decision on the scorecards, and that's a fact. At the same time, Manny's achievements across weight classes are arguably greater. So whichever side you're on, there's always an argument. What makes Manny even crazier is that even later in his career, even in his late 30s and early 40s, he was still beating younger fighters, still dragging prime opponents into deep waters. So now the real question isn't about greatness anymore. The real question is this: if we take Prime Manny Pacquiao around 2008 to 2011 and drop him into the brutal era of the Four Kings, could he actually survive it? To understand why the Four Kings era is considered one of the most brutal periods in boxing history, we need to go back to the late 1970s and the entire 1980s. This era didn't last just 1 or 2 years. It ran for more than a decade, roughly from the late 70s all the way into the late 80s. And during that time, the welterweight and middleweight divisions were absolutely stacked. When people say the Four Kings, they're talking about 4 fighters who were all active at the same time, all in their prime, and all willing to fight each other. No dodging, no long waiting games, no protecting records. These 4 were Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, Marvin Hagler, and Roberto Duran. What made this era dangerous wasn't just talent, it was the mindset. These guys weren't fighting to look good. They were fighting to take something from the other guy. Titles, pride, legacy, everything. Every fight felt like it mattered, because it actually did. Let's start with the physical side. These fighters were big for their divisions. Strong, fast, durable, and experienced. Thomas Hearns was a tall welterweight, with knockout power that carried up multiple weight classes. Marvin Hagler was a middleweight, who could walk through punches for 12 or 15 rounds without slowing down. Roberto Duran came from lightweight and brought raw aggression and pressure that broke opponents mentally. Sugar Ray Leonard had speed, footwork, timing, and fight IQ that forced everyone else to adjust. Now here's the scary part. They didn't fight once and move on. They fought each other repeatedly. Leonard versus Hearns, Hagler versus Hearns, Leonard versus Duran, Duran versus Hagler. These weren't exhibition-style fights. These were brutal, high-stakes battles where someone usually took serious damage. Another reason this era was so dangerous is the rules and the culture. Longer fights, harder sparring, less concern for fighter safety compared to today. Fighters were expected to push through pain, cuts, and exhaustion. If you broke mentally, you were done. If you hesitated, you got punished. Also, there was no such thing as an easy fight at the top. If you were a champion, sooner or later, you had to face one of the other kings. And when you did, there was no stylistic safety. Each one brought a different problem, Power, pressure, speed, endurance. You couldn't prepare for just one thing. That's why people still talk about this era decades later. Not because of nostalgia, but because it set a standard. Multiple all-time greats, same divisions, same time period, and all of them willing to fight each other when it mattered. So the real answer to the question, can a Prime Manny Pacquiao survive the Four Kings era, is not a simple yes or no. It's complicated, and most boxing experts would tell you the same thing. There's no debate about Manny Pacquiao's greatness. He's easily the greatest Asian boxer of all time, and for many people, he belongs inside the top 10 greatest boxers ever. 8 divisions, 5 lineal titles, Fighter of the Decade, multiple Fighter of the Year awards. He fought top opponents, often in their prime, often in their home country, and he didn't avoid danger. That part is already settled, but when we talk about the Four Kings era, we're talking about a completely different kind of problem. Size matters a lot here, not just height, but natural frame reach and how much weight a fighter can comfortably carry without losing power or durability. Manny Pacquiao destroyed fighters like Barrera, Morales Marquez, De La Hoya, Cotto, Hatton, and Margarito. And let's be clear, those are elite names. Fighters like Miguel Cotto and Ricky Hatton are champions in their own right. Many experts believe fighters of that level would struggle badly in the Four Kings era. And Manny didn't just beat them. In several cases, he dominated them. But the Four Kings are not just elite champions. They're physically bigger across the board. Marvin Hagler, Thomas Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran. These guys were natural welterweights and middleweights, some of them walking around close to middleweight size even on fight night. Manny himself has admitted that going above the Margarito fight pushed his limits. Margarito was already much bigger than him, closer to a middleweight in the ring. And the Four Kings were basically that size, or even bigger, as a normal thing. So does that mean Manny wouldn't survive? No, that's not what this means. What it means is that Manny Pacquiao would struggle more in that era than he did in his own. The speed, angles, and pressure that worked so well against larger fighters would still be dangerous. But the margin for error would be much smaller. One mistake against a Hagler or a Hearns is not the same as one mistake against a natural welterweight. Manny wouldn't be outclassed, but he wouldn't have easy nights either. Every fight would be physical, every round would matter, and the punishment would add up, much faster than what he experienced in most of his career. So the fair conclusion isn't that Manny couldn't survive the Four Kings era. It's that surviving it would be the hardest challenge of his career, harder than anything he faced before. So for the final answer, yes, a Prime Manny Pacquiao can survive the Four Kings era, but it would not be the same Manny Pacquiao we saw dominating his own generation. He would struggle, a lot, not just a little harder, but maybe 3 to 5 times harder compared to the era he actually fought in. The size, the strength, the durability, and the physical pressure of the Four Kings would force Manny into fights where every round is dangerous. There would be no room for mistakes, no comfortable matchups, and no nights where speed alone could solve everything. And to be completely fair, there's also a real possibility that Manny Pacquiao never reaches 8 division world champion status if he lived in that era. Not because he isn't great enough, but because the path would be much heavier. Fewer weight jumps, bigger opponents earlier, more punishment over time. The opportunities that existed in his real career might not even be available in the Four Kings era. That doesn't take anything away from Manny's legacy. He is still one of the greatest boxers of all time. He still beat elite fighters, often at a size disadvantage, and he still proved things that very few fighters in history ever did. So yes, Manny Pacquiao survives the Four Kings era, but it would be the hardest version of his career. No shortcuts, no easy nights. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this kind of breakdown, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.